It's that time of year again, the end of it. And to celebrate, for the next 3 weeks, I'll be dropping 3 videos back to back to back, announcing my top 10 trashiest, then best, then worst anime of 2025 in descending order of importance. As always, only new full or feature-length anime that ended their first seasons or theatrical run this year will be eligible, which is very important for the sake of variety and monetization on this list in particular. And even then, almost half of it's gonna be me basically putting hentai on Patreon. And a whole lot of cute fuzzy animals on YouTube, which one entry makes very uncomfortable. Unfortunately, that does also mean I can't give new panty and stocking with garter belts the accolades it so richly deserves. But to make up for that, the Angels have graciously agreed to come on and sell out in this ad spot. Sis, I'm like totally worn out and need a carb load before my next bone sesh. Could I? OMG, what happened? I guess I put on a few. Is it noticeable? Angels, the answer to both of your problems has been handed down from on high. The elixir of the gods, Gamersupps. Why do you sound so weird? You really think Geoff should be doing that accent? Oh, good point. Stop interrupting, you stupid skanks and such. I'm trying to tell you about the sweet yet sugar-free taste of Gamersupps, which comes in a wide variety of delicious branded flavors and packs a carefully calibrated mix of caffeine and nootropics for a calm, regulated energy boost that's perfect for getting it on. Plus, it'll replenish some of the essential vitamins and minerals you just got out of you, and they sell shaker cups with sexy waifus on them to get you in the mood. Or gorgeous pixel art. That's my fetish. And shaking them makes great hand job practice. Like, yay. I have to mix it myself? Bullshit. Not anymore, you lazy bitch. Gamersupps comes in cans now, available in singles and 12 packs. And they still slap all that nice waifu art on t-shirts and mouse pads and shit too, so you don't have to miss out just cause you're too stupid to follow a one-step recipe. All this and more can be yours for 10% off an order of any size when you go to gamersupps.gg/basement and use promo code BASEMENT at checkout. Once more, that's promo code BASEMENT for 10% off. Wow, I thought I was a whore. Gotcha advertising is as vital a part of any well-balanced trash diet as vitamin isekai or shonen protein, and you'll find all 3 in our 10th place pick, Twisted Wonderland. Oi! 大丈夫か? No, I didn't lie to you. This is definitely a shonen isekai, just more of the Black Butler type of shonen, where any young boys who may or may not enjoy the anime or manga are incidental to the primary target audience of adult women who really want to see twinks make out, which has a pretty sizable overlap with the massive demo of Disney adults over here in Japan, hence why Disney and the game dev side of Aniplex hired Black Butler's creator, Yana Toboso, to build them a money print, alternate fantasy world in which all of the most iconically campy Disney villains won their respective movies and went on to found a school of just wizardry, no witchcraft, where all their twink descendants can hang out and menacingly flirt with each other. One day, a young kendo enthusiast named Yu finds himself thrown into that world and that school via a mix-up by the magic mirror on the wall who handles school admissions, and possessing no magic powers of his own, he's allowed to live in a dilapidated dorm haunted by the lonesome ghosts while he tries to figure out how to go home in exchange for doing various errands around campus. But while he may not have magic, he does have the power of friendship, and so after battling a monster down in the Seven Dwarves' old abandoned mine alongside an endearingly irritating mascot and pair of delinquent playing cards, he finds his true calling as the school's resident twink wrangler and sets about, wrangling some twinks. In particular, he has to wrangle the twinkified reimaginings of the aforementioned Disney villains that lead each twink fraternity at the school, all of whom suffer from some sort of emotional issue that threatens to turn them into a literal monster, which must be overcome with the aforementioned power of friendship before everyone can kiss and make up. So, yeah, that's the money game, and using all the money that it printed, they invested in making a very pretty anime based on it. And if you or anyone you know is yaoi trash and or Disney trash, be prepared for it to siphon catastrophic amounts of your time and money. That does still leave our diet in need of some real shonen battle slop to wash everything else down, though, and in 9th place, Togen Anki fills that role adequately.
そんな奴らどうでもいいだろう。時間がもったいねえ。応急処置しないと危険だったら俺には関係ない。
Imagine, if you will, that Blue Exorcist and Tokyo Ghoul, specifically the shitty anime version, got it on at the Jump Christmas party one year and got so crazy with it they turned into one of those big cartoon fight clouds, but, you know, with sex. And the big crazy fuckball proceeded to roll around the room, picking up My Hero Academia, Jujutsu Kaisen, Naruto, Chainsaw Man, and Demon Slayer before spitting them all out in various states of undress. Also, someone invited Dead Man Wonderland and it got in there too. Then, 9 months later, Mr. Ghoul very quietly dropped the resulting bundle of shame on Weekly Shonen Champion's doorstep. I know that's a rather homoerotic metaphor to describe an anime in which each new woman we meet is smuggling bigger cantaloupes in a smaller handkerchief than the last, and the camera in most fights involving those girls spends more time tracking the plot than the action, but there's no ignoring how much DNA from other burly Fightman shows is splattered all over this thing, from copy-pasted characters to blatantly stolen power sets to basically the entire core premise. So much so that you can barely see the handful of somewhat novel ideas it does have underneath, which include calling them Oni instead of ghouls, calling the ghoul hunters Momotaros, and that's it. That's all the ideas. Okay, I guess it's also kind of original that the Momotaros manipulate bacteria to combat the Oni's branches of blood eclipse releases, but it could just as easily be called Black Key or Dark Aura or Anti-Jizz for all the practical difference it would make. And so, absent any real personality to call its own, Togen Anki's only recourse is to get even more adolescently edgy than the anime that inspired it, which, remember, include Tokyo fucking Ghoul. So in literally the second arc, we've got Momotaro Mengele menacing children so hard he accidentally kills one of them before he can subject it to human experiments as a warm-up for when he resurrects a different child's own parents as zombies that immediately try to kill her, forcing Protag-kun to headshot her mom in front of her in his second real fight ever. And it's so eager to get to that point that it cuts off its own obligatory first test where you fail if you're expelled arc in the middle of Rin Kaneki and Denji Todoroki learning the power of teamwork when Kakashi Aizawa suddenly gets an emergency call about a massive attack on the Oni's secret hideout in Kyoto that he's supposed to bring all the untrained orphan teenagers who literally just started at My Oni Academia that morning to help. Togen Anki has zero interest in stringing its fights and fan service together with anything remotely resembling a coherent story. Shonen slop does not get sloppier than this, and honestly, I can't say I hate it. After all the rich, complex, and thought-provoking shonen battlers we've enjoyed this year, it's kind of relaxing to have one show we don't gotta think about even a little bit. And this is the trashiest one besides everything else on the list, so yeah, it's the one I went for. Now, this diet we're planning also requires at least one isekai one of those, but thankfully we've got that covered too in 8th place with the daily life of a middle-aged online shopper in another world. Middle-aged shopper does set itself apart from the isekai pack at least a little in two key ways. Firstly, per the title, it's got more of a focus on fantasy economics than action, with its hero's cheat power allowing him to trade gold for literally anything you can find on Amazon and then sell that modern tech in this new medieval world at a massive markup. This in turn means that all the waifus in his obligatory harem are more impressed by and attracted to his craftsmanship, salesmanly charisma, and general inventiveness than his ability to hurt monsters real good, making for much more believably adult relationships than you see in most isekai. Which brings us to the second big differentiator: he actually fucks them. A lot. As early as episode 1. Sometimes he even has sex with girls who aren't even in the harem, just casual hookups like a real functional adult would have. Plus, most of the girls who are in the harem are cat girls, and not the cowards kind. So that's 2 huge wins for the furry enjoyers this year. Or, just the one if they're not visually impaired, because unfortunately, for as maturely casual as this anime is about its sexy bits, the bits themselves kind of look like they were drawn by a 13-year-old boy whose parents keep way too close an eye on his internet access for him to have ever actually seen porn before. But he does have friends at school who've told him about the concept, and damn it, puberty finds a way. So that, plus the fact that it's mostly consenting adults doing very vanilla stuff, does kind of hold this back from the higher echelons of the list. In the balance of things, despite being way more overtly raunchy, I'd still say it's less trashy than number 7, Backstabbed in a Backwater Dungeon. My trusted companions tried to kill me, but... I don't want to read the whole fucking thing again.
ヒューマンの僕には無理かもしれない。でもこの手で復讐したいんだ。必ずあいつらに。
After his party does the same thing that every protagonist's party in every one of these fucking things does to him, but like meaner than normal, Protag-kun Light comes back 3 years later, armed with the cheat power of infinite gacha pulls and backed by an army of level 9,999 super secret rare gacha waifus to help him achieve a singular goal: kill and or torture everyone who betrayed him, plus any races that gave birth to them, which is all the other races. To be clear, that's not just about the personal slight. All the other fantasy races are super racist too, especially to humans who have the lowest level cap out of all of them. But aside from the occasional rapist Were-Garurumon or Dark Elf Mengele, you know it's been a crazy year when I can make that comparison twice in one list, and it's not even the top 5. All those microaggressions are nothing worth doing a total global 8-way genocide over if you really think about it, and hopefully after he's done thinking about it and going on his whole Timu Mamanga Overlord adventuring reconnaissance mission that he's doing under the clever pseudonym Dark-sama, Light will eventually reach that conclusion too. But even if he does, the fact that he thinks it's on the table at all really says a lot about this anime and the guy starring in it, and more specifically, how huge of an edgelord he really is. Well beyond Buster Sword levels, maybe even huger than Sephiroth's Masamune in Kingdom Hearts specifically, which still doesn't make him anywhere near the edgiest Light in all of anime, but comes way closer than anyone has any right to, and thankfully that's close enough to shoot past the tedious territory of over-serious grimdark bullshit like Failure Frame or Kingdoms of Ruin into the same vaunted, rarefied realm as your Death Notes and Hellsings, where it's genuinely fun just watching the guy aura farm on all the even more horrible people that he's torturing. Nowhere near as entertaining, since all the fights just boil down to who has the biggest power level, and spoiler alert, it's always the guy who's hit the maximum theoretical level cap. Plus, despite his best harvesting efforts, the quality of his aura yield falls far short of true artisans like Shadow-sama or even a factory farmer like Sung Jin Woo, but nevertheless, if that's what you're craving, it gets the job done. As atrocity committers go, though, Light is still mostly of the aspiring variety, which puts him far behind the titularly implied prince of number 6, I Want to Escape from Princess Lessons. For those who don't know, minus the Halloween music, that clip was probably indistinguishable from any of a dozen villainess-adjacent Regency romance things about some noble lady reluctantly falling for a pushy prince. But those who do know just had a chill shoot up their spines the second they saw that man's eerily adoring gaze. Because he pushes pushiness to dangerous levels, and there has never been a noble lady more reluctant. Their love story starts with a kidnapping, and it's all downhill from there. Where similar love interests might occasionally pester their protag-chans with slightly overbearing overtures, he punishes his just for trying to leave the house he locked her up in with 5 straight hours of hack poetry recital. Letitia Dorman's life is a never-ending purgatory of captive coercion, grooming, and gaslighting on the part of friends and family who only want what's worst for her and politically convenient for them. Her one opportunity for respite and privacy coming when a different guy kidnaps her from that kidnapping. It's a genuinely unnerving tale that only gets creepier as she breaks and accepts her fate toward the end. And the creepiest thing of all is it thinks it's being cute and funny. It thinks this is what romance looks like. And what's more, the fact that the web novel and manga it's based on did well enough to get an anime in the first place suggests that at least some women out there agree with it. And I must confess, I find something very compelling about that. Not the fantasy itself, but the idea that anyone would ever have it, and the sheer unapologetic unhingedness with which the author revels in it, unaware that this looks like a horror movie to most people. This one's for the ladies out there who think 50 Shades of Grey is just way too healthy, and if that's not trashy, I don't know what is. But speaking of repurposed self-insert fics, the girl trash somehow got even trashier this year in 5th place with The Dark History of the Reincarnated Villainess.
100点が取れますように、両思いになれますように。神様、私に火、水、風、土属性の力と、そして回復魔法をください。A
protag-chan being reborn into a world of her own creation as the evil, flat-chested sister of the big-titty Mary Sue OC she named after herself, even though she's Japanese and the setting is very clearly European and everyone else has European names, is one of those isekai ideas so brilliant you wonder why no one's done it before once you see it. Or at least I did. At first glance, it might not seem all that different from your typical otome-style villainess setup, but the thing about that sort of thing is it has to at least be plausible that the original story was crafted by a professional writer for commercial purposes, and there's only so many death flags even the worst of those will heap on one villainess. In a world crafted with all the writing skills of a lonely, sexually frustrated teenager who grew up to be an accountant, though, anything goes. From talking down handsomely broody would-be killers whom she herself wrote to be that unreasonably murderous, to saving her sister from the rapist Were-Garurumon she cooked up in her monster fucker phase. Never even imagined I'd see a year crazy enough to say that twice in one video. Iana Magnolia's adventures have a very fun tendency to veer off in unconventional directions that frequently lead to uncomfortable reflections on what the fuck was wrong with her when she came up with that weirdly specific plot point. All the while having to live alongside the most obnoxiously perfect version of herself that she could imagine when all that stuff was wrong with her, plus all the impossibly hot dudes who keep coming out of the woodwork to instantly fall in love with that girl. It's a genius setup for a comedy that's an absolute blast to watch, though I do wish it were more of a blast to actually, watch. The production values are a little lacking, to put it mildly, but the low-budget aesthetic isn't out of place in this particular setting, and the choppy, sloppy animation has a certain clumsy charm to it that at least matches the energy of the comedy quite nicely. Plus, at least some of the money that they didn't spend on animation got used to license quite possibly the banginest opening song of any anime this year, which goes a little something like this. If you were watching this on Patreon, you would hear the actual music instead of this ad. It would take a heck of a lot to make an isekai that's trashier than that in the depths of its soul, but I'm the evil lord of an intergalactic empire managed to pull it off and secure a 4th place finish.
イエス時間を買ってほしいの。
全く俺の男心に響かない。
It all begins when a nameless salaryman is literally cucked to death by his evil boss, and in his dying moments meets an interdimensional being called the Guide, who offers him a second chance in a fantasy world of his choosing. He selects a Dune-esque space empire with medieval politics and, most importantly, Magitech mecha, because he and his friend in high school were really into Gundam and stuff, vowing to stop being such a goody two-shoes pushover in his new life and take everything he wants, just like the selfish bastards who ruined his last one. He gets a pretty good head start on that too when he's reborn as the future ruler of an entire solar system, though it could also be a lot better considering his parents almost immediately run off to Space Cancun, leaving him with a massive debt to pay off and nothing but a loyal butler and highly advanced AI sex bot to help him do it. And all of this is by the Guide's design, as he's secretly a malignant eldritch entity who literally feeds on human suffering and, after orchestrating his wife's betrayal back on Earth, found Liam's misery to be so delectable he just had to have a second course. But he made one fatal miscalculation in setting Liam up for failure at every turn, because with each successive failure to be the evilest bastard in the universe, our anti-hero only becomes a more effective and widely beloved ruler. It also helps quite a bit that the sex bot is surprisingly good at administration, something no other aristocrats are really taking advantage of due to the universe at large having undergone something of a soft butlerian jihad a while back and decided to only use AI for f***ing from now on. This taboo does eventually come back around to bite Liam at the end of season 1 when she determines that, in accordance with the first law of maid robotics, never allow the master to come to harm, she has no choice but to go away so that other nobles can't use anti-AI prejudice against him. But he solves that paradox right quick by saying, "Bitch, if you ever leave me, I'll kill myself." And the anime treats that like the sweetest, most tenderly romantic moment you've ever seen in your life. It's kind of hilarious. Many things about Intergalactic Evil Lord are. It approaches the excesses of isekai power fantasy with tongue planted firmly in cheek, reveling in both the wish fulfillment and the fundamental absurdity of it all in a way that feels fresh and delightful. It obviously helps that the science fantasy setting is so unconventional for the genre, allowing it to play around with tropes your typical sword and sorcery isekai can't really touch, but the original light novel's author also clearly has a knack for subverting tropes in ways that always feel crazier and somehow more salacious than the cheap, pulpy indulgences you're expecting. In my hottest trash roast, I spoke very fondly of how it avoids the usual slop pitfall of making all the villains
Babies! That's right!
by giving its first major baddie a very futuristic and even more disturbing Cronenberg kink, but it's also quite amusing how Liam's own villainous fantasies of more typical sexual tyranny are repeatedly undermined by every strong-willed heroine he thinks might be fun to break, immediately and enthusiastically throwing herself at him before he gets the chance, and also literally all the peasant girls want him too, so that's not an option either. It really goes to show that there's more to trashiness than unrelenting base horniness. But that is also obviously a huge part of it, as you'll see in every entry from 2025's top 3, starting with Please Put Them On Takamine-san. Well, you probably won't actually see a lot of that specific part, at least if you're not watching this uncensored on Patreon, because as good as this year was for edgy anime, the ecchi anime blew them all.
You forgot to say away again.
Almost any other year, an anime about a sexy high school prodigy who maintains her perfect academic and athletic records by stripping off her underwear in public to reset time, and the lucky schmuck she blackmails into being her walk-in closet, would have been a shoo-in for the top spot, especially one with, physics this convincing and such keen attention to fine anatomical details. So damn fine. But somehow, even a concept that wild looks a little tame next to what we have coming up. Though thankfully, even if it was a whole lot tamer, Takamine would still be worth watching. Though, to be perfectly clear, it is not tame at all, and that is very good for it. On top of the quality bottomless content, though, it's a genuinely solid romantic comedy built around a small cast of very strong personalities and an interesting gimmick that it gets plenty of mileage out of. Not full mileage, mind you. I feel like the story could have done a bit more with the idea of time travel and superpowers in the time that it had, but it still gets even more laughs with it than it does other involuntary reactions. And the one thing it doesn't keep hitting reset on, blessedly, is its central relationship, which really goes places in the span of just 12 episodes. Man, does it ever go some places. I'm still a little shocked I can't rank it higher. But as wild as that is, it's even crazier that I have to put Behe Neko, the elf girl's cat is secretly an S-ranked monster, in second place.
アリアちゃんも人事じゃないにゃ。エレメンタルキャットって異種交配できる生き物にゃ。それがいいじゃないですか。
The horniest harem of the year by a margin as gaping as that elf's you-know-what, in which the protagonist is a tiny little kitty cat that everyone wants to for some reason, which isn't even that much of a problem for him because he has the power to steal other monsters' powers, which eventually lets him turn his tail into tentacles, and you better believe the elf is all about that, as is her cat girl party mate, who, just by the way, in this world's lore, cat girls are canonically a product of certain types of cats and girls being genetically compatible. So in the grand scheme of things, the elf's not even that weird, and that doesn't warrant the top spot? How? Well, you might have noticed that quite a bit of the anime footage you're looking at is still anime footage, even on YouTube, which, believe me, is not gonna be the case for first place. And in fact, you might be surprised by just how much good old-fashioned, mostly work-safe adventuring and dungeoneering the elf girl and her cat get up to when they're not tempting me with low-hanging Shane Dawson jokes. Well, good old-fashioned is a bit of a stretch, but the lit RPG plot they tossed in to complement all the other plot is at least passable, and the cat's even got a pretty fun OP power set that he makes moderately creative use of in some decent to good fight scenes. You can do way better for fantasy and isekai type anime this year, as you'll see just next week and even earlier on this list, but honestly, you can also do worse. It may be a show about cat f***ing, but it's not literally all f***ing all the time, and anything less of that never really stood a chance of competing with number one, Nukitashi the Animation.
こいつは特別製でな。
And when I describe the show as reverse Shimonetta, you will immediately understand why. Unless you immediately ask what the hell's a Shimonetta, in which case, allow me to make up for the failings of your education system. Shimonetta, a boring world where the concept of dirty jokes doesn't exist, followed a group of horny teenage revolutionaries rebelling against an authoritarian Japan that has outlawed even the tamest forms of public obscenity. Now, exactly 1 decade later, Nukitashi's here to balance the scales with its tale of Volcel guerrillas fighting to free their island home from tyrannical laws that make fucking mandatory. As you can probably imagine, and will have to imagine if you're not a patron, that premise makes even the incidental dialogue scenes gloriously unsafe for work. Forget YouTube. Parts of this anime are so raunchy, they weren't even allowed to show them in the anime, which had to air audio only just to satisfy the censors on late night Japanese TV. If you count each background character separately, the ratio of hardcore full penetration plot per minute in this full-length broadcast anime exceeds most hentai OVAs. And what's really wild is even as it's going that wild, it manages to tell a genuinely good story. Not a great one, it's absolutely full of holes, and also the narrative has quite a few inconsistencies, but each character has a strong presence and memorable personality. The leads go through satisfying arcs with surprising twists and turns, and it's got a clear, coherent philosophical theme at its core that nobody has the right to tell anyone else who or what or where they can a message I can really get behind so long as it consents. And the climax that it reaches after our hero realizes the MacGuffin with the power to change the world was in his own pants all along is absolutely buck wild in ways I mostly can't show or even describe, let alone tell you where she was keeping those coins. But suffice to say that the part where Tachibana breaks through steel wires with the sheer awesome power of his full body boner isn't even close to the literally nuttiest bit. You ever seen a trained sniper ricochet shot a woman to a sentence YouTube probably won't let me finish, which definitely isn't a problem for that sniper's targets. Also, whoever localized the show over at Ocean Vale deserves a vigorous stand-up clapping for the never-ending torrent of puns and innuendo they spurted all over these subtitles. Nukitashi may not be the deepest dumpster I've ever dived into, but I don't think I've ever seen one quite so overflowing with the good stuff. And if you want to see a hotel room full of your drunkest con buddies howling with laughter at the after party, few will do a better job. It's safe to say 2025's been a banner year for anime trash, but somehow it's even safer to call it one of the best on record for unironic bangers. So stay tuned for next week when I'll be running down my top 10 anime of the year, unless it's already out, in which case just click to watch it now. But if you're still waiting, while you wait, if you haven't seen it already, go check out my new retrospective on Yoshiteru Sato, the objectively, mathematically worst anime director to ever do it. You will not believe some of the things he got away with. I'm Geoff Thew, professional garbage gourmand, signing out.